and gentlemen, to the ONOG Summer Circuit Feature Tournament number 3. We're in Group B right now in the winners bracket finals, where we'll have Trump and Irony. Both these players, they won their first matches, so they'll have the opportunity to straight away go to the playoffs, which will happen tomorrow at around the same time. I think both players played really well. Both players played really solid lineups as well. Nothing too crazy or out of the ordinary, with both players being Patron, Hunter, and a third class.
Yeah, so do you really have a favorite for this match? I think both of them are very good contenders at this point.
Yeah, I really didn't see too many mistakes from either player. Again, both these lineups are really solid. I guess, okay, so the big difference is Handlock versus Rogue. I think the Handlock is going to do slightly better against the Warrior, but it's going to be slightly weaker to Rogue and Hunter. So Trump is going to be looking to match his Handlock against the Warrior from Irony. Meanwhile, I think the Rogue is actually pretty good against all three of Trump's decks. So just judging from the classes and not like the players themselves, I have to give the advantage to Irony.
Really? I mean, Trump is definitely the more known player, so I guess I'll side with the person who I've seen play so many perfect games. But Irony did perform really well in his first series today, so I have to give him a lot of credit for that. I didn't see any mistakes really on his part, and just a lesser known player, it would be really awesome to see him take this one. I'm sure he's hungry for it as well.
Yeah, definitely. I said I would favor Irony from the lineups, but like you said, Trump is just playing amazingly so far. In fact, like we said, he won 2 tournaments recently. And in Black Rock Mountain overall, he's like the number 2 or 3 player in terms of overall win rate. He has about a 57% win rate in Hearthstone, which, like, a lot of people say it's a very RNG-based game, but players like Trump are actually proving that wrong completely. And I'm really glad to see that, because in the beginning of Hearthstone, Trump was one of those guys where you say he's a streamer, but he's not necessarily one of the best players in the world. And he's definitely grown and shown that, like, it's not even his innate skill, but the fact that he's just working so hard to rise up in the ranks.
Yeah, I think you're right that, you know, maybe at the start he was more of a streamer, but he's put in the effort to make sure that he has learned every single thing and gotten all the statistics right. So we start off with a Hunter versus Hunter game. Typically in Hunter versus Hunter, the more aggressive Hunter will win, but see how that pans out. Trump's list was pretty aggressive when we saw it last time. I didn't see any big creatures.
Yeah, we saw a Highmane, but we definitely didn't see this Tiger or the Piloted Shredder. It actually looks like 2 completely different decks. And here's a Lotheb even as well.
Wow.
Trump, at this stage of the game, like we said in the Hunter Mirror, one of the most important cards is the Glaive Zuka, which really does well again to taking control of the board. Like, it clears off Mad Scientists, it clears off the Knife Jugglers, and even the buff from the Glaive Zuka is really relevant.
I mean, I like the Stranglethorn Tiger a lot. I think we saw that in one of the other ONOG series where Nostam was playing with the Stranglethorn Tiger, and it's almost like a Highmane replacement or a filler for another big drop, but it's kind of guaranteed damage where your opponent is going to get hit by it. They can't stop a 5 health stealth creature in really any way. Maybe like a Brawl is the one answer. Otherwise, you're just going to punch him in the face for a big chunk of damage.
I like to think of it as kind of like your second Lotheb, and you're playing it because you can't play a second Lotheb because it's a legendary creature. It's basically a 5-mana 5/5 that you can't really deal with that easily. And we've been talking a lot about how every deck plays Lotheb these days. And so if Lotheb is good, you would think a card that's very similar to Lotheb would also be pretty good as well.
I think it's a really great analysis that it's like a second Lotheb. It's just something that it's like a 5/5 that's going to hit them, and it kind of messes with their turn so that they can't do a proper play.
A little unfortunate. I mean, it didn't go out perfectly for Irony. If he cleared off that Abusive Sergeant, this almost would be game over. But this is still really, really bad since the Freezing Trap, it's going to not get much value at all. And then Irony is going to get the initiative here. Not only that, but as we mentioned in the previous series of Hunter versus Hunter, like, one of the only ways to come back in this matchup is Knife Juggler Unleash. And unfortunately, Trump, he doesn't have either part of that combo.
It seems like a never lucky moment to get Leok there. The Misha was not a whole lot better, but it was still definitely better. It would push more face damage, and Huffer would have been insane. There was nothing from Trump that could actually kill a Huffer, so you're guaranteeing gigantic amounts of damage that would also trade for a creature leader.
Yeah, Trump's hand is a bit unfortunate in the early game. We saw him drawing against Control Warrior just all his early game, like a lot of 1 drops, 2 drops, both Glaive Zukas. Um, and I think he actually would have wanted this hand against Control Warrior, whereas he definitely wants the more aggressive options against Hunter.
This is really the same deck from Trump that we saw in the previous,
I know, right?
previous set.
It's just like he drew all his big cards in this game, both Shredders, the High Main, the Lotheb, and the Tiger. He's basically only missing the second High Main.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's a really, well, it's not a huge deal. If he had a way to combo the 2 Knife Jugglers with another play, but still pretty good, I guess.
so
I guess you debate Lotheb over Tiger here. Seems like the Tiger's better from our perspective. There's no spells in Irony's hand, but you would be wondering what potential spells, if you played neither of them, die to kill command, since of course it's stealthed. I think the Tiger seems better in almost every way.
not only that, but I think just generally the Lotheb is better. So you might want to save the Lotheb for later on.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that a lot.
Slightly different logic, but we come to the same conclusion. But then again, we have like we can see everything that's going on. I think something that Trump might be thinking about is that because generally Lotheb is better, and your hand is so clunky, so minion heavy, you might not get to play the Lotheb later on if you play the Tiger here.
Yeah, I suppose that's true. Like, the Tiger will guarantee the damage, whereas the Lotheb could get traded on, so if something big came from Irony, it was able to take it out.
We're getting confirmation that this trap from Irony is a second freezing trap.
Well, Harrison Jones on nothing kind of feels bad, because there are a ton of weapons in Trump's deck. He was playing 2 Glaive Zukas and presumably 2 Eaglehorn bows as well.
Yeah. The Harrison Jones actually gives Trump some clue as to what type of hunter this is. Harrison Jones is pretty much only played in mid-range hunters. It's definitely not going to be a hybrid hunter or a phase hunter. So from that knowledge, I think Trump can even suspect that Dr. Boom is in this deck, and he might have to play around that. Although I'm not sure how effectively he can play around it, just based on how much of a disadvantage he's in at the moment.
Well, he calls the trap as being freezing. This is really weird to see. A hunter game has gone on to turn 6 and they're both still above 20 health. That's pretty unusual.
This is actually somewhat of a difficult hunter turn, I guess. You can clear off the board. Actually, if you just clear off the board, you're in a perfectly okay position, especially since you have Dr. Boom to follow up next turn.
So do you think, I mean, like, kill command on the face seems really good here. I don't mind trading on the juggler with the weapon, because the juggler has so much potential with Haunted Creepers and future creatures. You know, maybe Trump has Unleashed in his hand or something. Wow, if he doesn't kill the juggler, that's pretty strange. But the kill command on Lotheb, I think, is not necessary, and the face damage is really juicy when it's going to put him down to 13, so...
Yeah, I definitely have to agree that you want to kill the knife juggler, but it's definitely a debate as to like which line. Like, it's a huge difference of lines whether you kill command the face or a Lotheb. How much stock? Whoa, okay.
So he gets to not take damage from the juggler this way, because if he used the bow on the juggler, he would go to 19. So I guess he values his own life total more than the damage onto Trump's face. It's a very specific play, though. I mean, that one took quite a bit of knowledge to know that that was what he wanted to do.
Yeah, I definitely didn't expect that play at all.
I like the Shredder Wolf Rider a little better here than anything else, because there's not a lot of multiple attacks for Irony, and it puts on pressure immediately when you know he has that Eaglehorn. You might have to trade Lotheb. I think you probably do, just because you don't know exactly what's in hand.
The problem with the Wolf Rider though is that it gets traded into by the Hunter Creeper. So I wouldn't be surprised if he just went for the Stranglehorn Tiger instead. Also, the Wolf Rider gives you something to use against an opposing freezing trap if that comes down. So overall, I kind of like the high main.
It's pretty hard when you're at a deficit. Like, I don't see Trump making it out of this one alive. That weapon puts up so much efficient mana damage, and he was already behind on health. So to have the weapon advantage also in Irony's hands, it's like he has to win on complete board control, which is very unlikely.
If Trump somehow had an Unleash, though, this game could be turned around. Like, there's not too much damage in Irony's hand, and just after a few turns, Trump could just have it all.
Yeah, those are some really dead draws, too. Silence and Web Spinner are pretty much the worst thing you could ever have in a position like this.
Well, it's all right. I'm sure the Web Spinner will draw a King Crush. The game will be over. But we do have to mention that, like you said, Hot Form, it does seem like Trump is bringing two Hunter decks to this tournament. In the first game, he only drew Highmane as one of his big minions above 4 mana. And this game, he drew both Highmanes, both Shredders, Loatheb, and Stranglehorn Tiger in his first 15 cards.
Yeah, it's pretty wild what we've seen here. I mean, it helped him so much in the first game, but in this one, it looks like it's been a little slow. Like the Shredders, I'd say, maybe were not as effective as something like a 2-mana creature or a charge creature instead.
Yep.
So, there's 5 damage on board. There's no way to live.
An Unleash would have been pretty amazing there.
He could have played a Shredder and attacked a Boombot and had the Boombot kill the Shredder. And that would have been
but if
minor potential.
Even if you do that, I guess you get Vitality Totem would be the best one.
You need to clear the board, right? So maybe Unstable Ghoul, and then you trade into the Haunted Creeper. But yeah, I don't. It's more of a joke. Yeah. Irony taking the first game. Wouldn't be surprised to see Trump just pick Hunter again, considering how successful Hunter's been in all of these tournament games so far.
Yeah, I expect the Hunter to do okay against the remaining decks. Another aspect about Stranglehorn Tiger is that it's pretty good against Rogue as well. We mentioned that it kind of acts like a Loatheb, and like one of the biggest problems against Rogue is that your high mains get sapped, but the Stranglehorn Tiger is kind of like an unsappable minion. It's like an unsappable Stranglehorn Tiger, or an unsappable Savannah High Main in a way.
Yeah, that's very true. It's going to be Patron Warrior versus Handwalk. Very different from what we just saw. I'm really surprised to see Trump not pick Hunter again, but I guess he figures because Irony's Hunter is out of the way that Handlock might be his strongest deck now, since that's typically the match you don't want to get with Handlock.
I think this matchup is actually really important. It's really important that Trump got the matchup because this is the only matchup I feel where Trump is favored in as the Handlock player. I feel like Rogue has an advantage against Handlock, and I also feel like any type of Hunter has an advantage against Handlock.
Yeah, I like this pick a lot, actually. I mean, like, it took quite a bit of strategy to know that that's what he wanted to pick here, but it seems to have worked out for the best for him in every way possible, considering the win rate, especially that you cited me before, of Handlock absolutely crushing Patron Warrior on average. But you want a Mountain Giant, or at least a Twilight Drake, but Mountain Giant's really the way to go. Did Irony keep Execute in his opening hand? I didn't catch that.
I did not either, but
seems like he might have.
Yeah, it's definitely like a worthwhile keep against Handlock.
Yeah.
Would you keep it generally against Handlock?
I don't know. I actually would have learned from that probably to see him do it. I feel like he might have played this matchup more than me. It's like definitely worth it, and it's better than, you know, any other Armor Smith or something like that. But card draw is probably a slightly more important feature if you could get Acolyte of Pain instead.
I think most beginning Patron players would just auto keep Execute, but it's really nice that you give a different perspective there.
Yeah. There are other ways to kill those opening creatures, of course. With Twilight Drake, for example, dies pretty easily just to smacking it twice with Death's Bite, and then you can set up like an early patron off of that. Not that you normally want to, but there's potential other plays there as well.
What exactly do you think Irony was thinking about in the previous turn? Was it maybe whether he wants to armor up on that turn?
I guess. Oh, you think he was thinking about the Battle Rage? He did have the Battle Rage in his hand already. Could have been to slam his own Armor Smith.
Yeah. Yeah, if you think about it, a 1 or a 4 health Armor Smith isn't really that different from a 2 health Armor Smith.
Yeah. Especially in a matchup like this. In an aggro match, it would be way different, but in this series, everything's going to have 4 or more attack. The Defender of Argus, played on curve, would be able to kill the Armor Smith. Well, he gets to loosen up his health now and prepare for the Battle Rage later. Looks like such a slow hand with those 2 executes, but eventually they will be really useful.
By eventually, you mean now?
Yeah, now. Eventually comes to fruition. Yeah.
Yeah, tanking 8 damage here. I think, again, a lot of newer players would go for the kill off the Armor Smith, but the Armor Smith is valuable in the sense that it's a minion on the board, and if Irony can draw like some kind of whirlwind effect, he can get a lot of cards from the Battle Rage.
Tapping to get that extra 1 card in before playing the Mountain Giant makes it perfectly curve out. Getting the ooze off of that draw is going to make him feel really safe too, I imagine.
Yeah, we do have to remember that Trump actually plays double ooze in this handlock deck, so a lot of patron hate here. I even think if you include double ooze against Rogue, you might even be favored in that matchup.
Yeah, that's true. Often I find that the Rogue just uses up the weapon, like, right as they play it, right? But I like Harrison a lot more against Rogues, because you just want to keep up on the card draw sometimes. Well, second Execute coming out. So that Execute Keep certainly showing its strength now with... Oh. Wow. I did not expect that. I mean, even with the, like, that is a great trade for him, of course, but I guess he wants to save the Execute for a taunt later.
Yeah, it makes quite a lot of sense. We saw how powerful that was when Trump executed one of Powder's big minions. Or he actually didn't even use the Execute on the last turn, which is pretty funny. But we might have to see it here. I mean, no way really for Irony to deal with this Emperor.
Yeah, Emperor is surprisingly such a tough creature to deal with as a 5/5. Most of the time you expect, like, oh, it's the mana advantage and you'll just kill it right away. But in this case, it's pretty much the biggest thing.
Yeah, not only that, but it's just like the 5 HP is really hard to deal with when most spells, they do a maximum of 4 damage. You really need some extra damage to chip in.
Looking for Emperor, I guess, is Irony, so it seems like card draw is more important. Maybe you just ignore the Emperor here. It doesn't make... Like, it does a lot, of course, but it's not going to win the entire game because the Handlock is not setting up damage with it. They're just setting up more creatures. Well, yeah, it goes for the Acolyte. Needs to get to his Emperor, but of course now he used the Ghoul with it, so he's not going to have any activators. Even if he gets the Emperor, he'll need a number of cards to be able to solidify this position.
I think Trump's goal right now should be to deny as much card draw as possible. And to do that, well, first there's 2 ways. First, you silence the Acolyte. And second is you get rid of as many minions as possible so a second Battle Rage won't come into effect. So I'm even wondering here Is it possible that Trump actually just uses a dark bomb on the armor smith after he attacks into the unstable ghoul?
You think to try to kill him faster? I'm not sure. I think for the most part, you just want to stay alive, right, and get your board up. But
Oh, of course, staying alive is nice.
yeah,
But
staying alive always good against a patron warrior.
okay, using the dark bomb here. So does that mean he's gonna go to face here?
There's
Yeah.
definitely the battle rage potential, so I think you want to clear as many creatures as you can, right? Knowing that Irony is so low on cards, you denied his cards. Like, if you had a way to kill the Acolyte, you would probably even kill that too, despite the fact that it doesn't matter at all, just so
Yeah.
that you can slow them down.
Actually, I think with this play, he denied one more armor from Irony. So
Cool.
pretty good. So one of these oozes will come down. Is it going to be the 1 mana ooze or the free ooze?
Yeah, huge decisions.
A bit unfortunate that the ooze will kill off his own emperor, but you know, what can you do?
I suppose you could wait, right? Like,
Well,
you,
you,
you
you, you could actually Argus your emperor,
ooh, yeah, I like that play a lot, actually.
and then
Your own ooze is kind of a liability here. It's too bad there's no way to get that killed.
you
Maybe
can
you,
no, you can mortal coil your own ooze, which is
okay,
pretty
so
fun.
yeah, you Argus the Emperor on its own, and then Mortal Coil your own ooze. This turn is pretty ridiculous. Got another Mortal Coil just to justify that choice. Doesn't even need a Mortal Coil anymore. Oh, he's gonna let it die.
Yeah, I mean, you obviously a third emperor activation would be pretty nice, but I think Trump is perfectly happy with this play. You can even do you even mortal coil this taunt or this slime?
No,
It's a
why would
possibility
you?
as well.
Nah. Oh, yeah, maybe I guess. But this seems pretty safe.
Yeah,
There's still the execute.
it seems pretty solid against just like there's not many cards in Irony's hand.
Like, as Trump, there's only one execute left, and you might think that even if he has it, like, that's a card in his hand that's not doing anything then other than removing my Molten Giant. And otherwise, a Giant with Taunt is pretty much unkillable. It's like 3 patrons to take that down, so it's never worth it to actually engage those creatures later in the game. Not a lot of choices here. I think you play Acolyte and Armor up. You could, well, interesting. Well, that's really surprising to me, but
It actually turned out to be pretty good. I guess. I mean,
Did
you
it,
do
though?
clear the board, but you've given up your like all your resources. I'm not saying it turned out well, but I think it turned out the best he could have hoped for with that play.
Yeah, I would agree that once he played that, that was probably the best pickup for him. Like, if we consider that he drew Whirlwind, he would have been able to play like a real good patron turn next turn with bouncing the patron off of the Warlock's 1 attack and then Whirlwinding to get 4 patrons.
Kind of want to see a Ragnaros here. Doctor Boom, I feel like it puts too many minions on the board, and Ragnaros just feels a bit safer.
It's a strange thing to say. Ragnaros feels safer. Yeah, I agree. All the 1 attack creatures and the bombs have chances to just mess you up completely.
I mean, this is okay as well. Not gonna fault Trump at all for playing Doctor Boom.
Well, doesn't seem like a lot of ways to get through that 8 health taunt now. You gotta like use the frothing to kill the taunt at this point. There's no other way to do 8 damage aside from sacrificing your board. You can set the weapon up, but there won't be anything to attack. Oh, double frothing. Oh, there's maybe some potential there if he grabbed a whirlwind next turn. So that's quite a bit of damage, especially with the bombs hitting some stuff too. If they obeyed you in a perfect lineup, then I think you could have a really good like way to win still from
It
pretty much the worst position.
There's also a possibility that if the bombs did the maximum amount of damage, he would just die.
Yeah, that's true, because he has to attack the 8 health creature. The 8 attack creature, rather.
So is there a possibility for lethal here? Yes, definitely. So you attack everything. Possibly you Mortal Coil your Boombot, and if it hits for 2 or more, you just
Oh,
win.
yeah.
I guess
But
the
he doesn't...
ooze
Yeah,
is even
that'll be
better.
same. So, very likely to kill here. Yep.
Okay, there we go.
Well, this is going to be a very long series, you can tell. Both these players playing pretty control-heavy decks. The Hand Warlock taking this one, tying it up 1-1.
Yeah, and it's really nice that Trump got that win out there because I think if he had to face his Warlock against Rogue or the Hunter, it probably wouldn't have been the best matchup. So both players with, again, pretty strong decks remaining. Like none of the decks that these players have brought are even tier 2 decks, I feel.
Yeah, they're all top-notch choices. What do you think you pick next? I think you pick Hunter as Trump, and probably you pick Patron Warrior as Irony, but there's like a really pressure decision now because each of the matchups is very different, and you're trying to assume what does the other guy bring? Can I get the best pick out of this? Because it's going to set the stage for the rest of the series.
I do feel that these matchups, although there are advantages for certain classes over the others, it's not like any of these classes has a huge advantage over the others. It's at max, it's like a 58% win rate for one deck over the other, or 55 even, and that's not just like amazing. And also, like some tech choices could swing the matchups quite a bit. For example, Harrison Jones and Patron Warrior, the Stranglethorn Tiger in Trump's Hunter deck, which will be good against Saps from Irony.
Yep. I remember I was talking to Chalky actually before about the pick strategy, and he was telling me, "Oh, it doesn't really matter what you pick. You'll just pick the best deck and see if it wins." To me, it's like the very minor advantage you can get from that is one of your decisions, and that even if like it doesn't affect the outcome greatly, it's still something that you want to try to consider for quite a while and maximize. But it looks like these players picked out pretty quickly what they wanted to choose. Did end up being Hunter versus Patron.
There's the Tiger. It's gonna be pretty good eventually, but I mean, this is probably one of the best starts Trump could have hoped for, but it doesn't put that much pressure, especially because of the Fireworks draw from Irony.
I like Trump's Hunter list in this matchup a lot. It's got that more aggressive feel to it, but it still has the beefy creatures. It's pretty much the game. Goes for the slam. Doesn't draw a card, just wants to clear the board, get as much out there as he can. So he could have used the weapon there to attack instead of slam, right? And he would have only taken 1 damage. I guess he knows he wants the... You can't hear me? You got me now, Monk. That's a problem. Apparently, we have a bit of miscommunication here. You guys can still hear me? I can still hear Monk, so... Skype always giving us some trouble. You guys, of course, we do our best to manage it, but there are plenty of things that like to go wrong. I think, yeah, I agree with Monk that we could just have a quick pause and we'll restart the call. So I'll be back in just a second.
My blade be thirsty.
right, we'll get everything set up again.
All right, it looked like Trump was in a pretty good position, just looking by that game, and the Stranglethorn Tiger was helping him quite a lot, pretty much getting a guaranteed 5 damage in.
Gotta wait to see. I can't see the game quite yet. But yeah, those Hunter versus Warrior matches are always like pretty swing turn oriented. So often it's like you'll be consistently doing something, and then either the Warrior has the big swing turn or they don't, and they need that to recover. I find it really interesting he saved the weapon instead of attacking the Creeper. And it was just because he wanted to play Inventor on 4 and he knew he couldn't slam then. Because using the weapon on a 1 attack creature is like the best way to not take damage, rather than hitting a Shredder or something later. So, how's it going, Monk? I hope you guys are enjoying the game.
Yeah, it's just with the recent updates, Skype has been quite unfortunate with us.
There's always technical problems when you do these types of streams, and then at least the viewers can still watch the game. Nope. I think it's fine just to let them watch in silence. It's not a... They'll get to observe.
Okay, it seems like Trump is just a few points off lethal there. Can't really tell what cards he has in his hand, but this is exciting.
Well, we as the casters can't actually see the game right now. We're just having some Skype trouble, but I'm sure you guys are enjoying this epic match between them. We will get to fix this right away after the game is over, but it is a pretty compelling game, so I'm kind of sad that I don't get to see it. But I'm sure you guys will enjoy the action that unfolds here. Of course, it's Hunter versus Patron Warrior, so I have faith that you guys understand what's going on and you'll live without our beautiful, soothing voices for a few moments. Isn't that
Yeah.
right, Monk?
Well, I'm actually about to get in this game right now, using the amazing perspective of spectator mode. Wow, this is a pretty close game. Trump, he only has a Lotheb on board, and his opponent is at... Oh, he's getting so much armor from this armor smith, and that just almost locks it out. It was one of those games where like the warrior just kind of stabilized at essentially 2 HP, but he got 8 armor on the last turn, and that top deck abusive sergeant isn't going to do much. Yeah. I can't even think of a combination of cards that would do anything here. Trump actually saved his abusive sergeant in order to combo it with some kind of charge minion. But essentially, I can't even think of a charge minion that would do anything. You would think in this position that some kind of quick shot shenanigans would have to happen, but quick shot won't draw too many cards, or enough cards rather, with the abusive sergeant already in hand. And it's not like Trump can play a charge, abusive sergeant it, and then draw into quick shot. 9 armor here from Irony. And there's no way Trump will be able to get through this.
I wish I could see it as well with you, Monk. I don't have the players available to spectate, unfortunately. So
It's all right. It's kind of winding down at the moment. Trump at 10 HP. There's only 4 power on board, but Death Spite is going to come up. Any type of like charge or... Oh, there we go. So any minion would have done it because Irony had a Warsong Commando already on board. So pretty close game, really back and forth, and Irony was able to take it up at the end. We're going to take a short break to fix these small issues with our chat program, also known as the lovely and bugless Skype. But we'll be right back in just a few short minutes.
okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my god, no. You guys gotta... We can take like a 10-minute break or something to figure out how to make...
All right,
Cool.
guys, we're back. We just saw a pretty good game. Well, we didn't see the game, but you guys saw a pretty good game between Trump and Irony. It's pretty back and forth with the Warrior player just stabilizing at 2 HP. It's exactly as what you were describing, Hot Form. Basically, like the Warrior, he's always behind, but then he gets a really big swing turn, and
Yeah.
that swing turn usually has to do with an armor smith or some kind of patron shenanigans. And indeed, it was an armor smith that brought Irony back into the game.
Well, that was cool. I'm sad that I didn't get to observe that match, but of course, all you guys did. So that's what matters. And that makes the series 2-1 for Irony. Yeah.
Yes, 2-1 for Irony, and we're gonna go into a pretty good matchup for Irony. I feel. I was talking about how all the matchups are pretty good for Rogue, and Rogue. Oh, that's gonna be a. It's a really weird hand. You have the double backstab and you have the sap for the high main, but the sprint isn't going to do much unless a prep is drawn. Generally, this matchup is pretty good for Oil Rogue because of that sap, and because of the numerous heals that these days Oil Rogue tends to run. But we know that Irony, he's running a Shade, for example, instead of an Earthring Farseer, and that might hurt his chances in this matchup.
Yeah. I don't know. The Rogue's hand looks really good right now, but because the Hunter is saving, like he doesn't have anything that's really that vulnerable to these early game mechanics. And I know Trump's deck, we have that Lotheb, we have the Stranglethorn Tiger. Normally, once the Hunter gets the Rogue to like 20 to 15 health, these big creatures become super punishing because you have to deal with them on the turn they're played, and they're specifically not to be dealt with on that turn. So,
Yeah.
wow, Misha was really good.
Yeah, definitely the best one. Oh, but Prep is also a really good choice as well, a really good draw. Now he can go for the sprint, and as long as Irony is able to deal with the creatures on board, he's going to be in a good position. If Eviscerate is drawn, another Prep would be amazing here.
I mean, like, if that prep hadn't been drawn, it could have almost been like a huge game ender there where he had to set the Animal Companion and then it would just be replayed and then the coin high main would come out to completely crush. In this case, Trump's still in a like pretty good position, but Irony has that ability to make some big turns later that take back this deficit.
Yeah, one problem with Irony's hand right now is that he has an Eviscerate, but he doesn't really have anything great to combo it with. He would really love a 3-mana minion. Like, his entire hand is like all his 5-mana minions. And 1 4-mana minion. He needs like that Farseer. He needs an SI agent even. An SI agent would actually be amazing. Or he could use his Shade. That would be also a good choice.
It feels like any specific creature here is too weak and you want to do like a big clear, but then you still have to try to develop the board at some point, and every future turn from Trump for the next several turns are just going to be pushing a creature into pure damage, which is like setting the Rogue, I'd say, kind of one turn behind what he wants to be. I like the Lotheb here, yeah. Even though you know you take damage, you just have to get something down. Oh, wow. Irony was aware that the coin was still in hand, of course, so you could think, all right, well, maybe prevent the coin high main, which would have been really sweet play had there not been a Lotheb draw.
Yeah, Lotheb's gonna come down, and I feel like that's honestly that seals the game.
Yeah, the heal bot I think is the only play here to potentially survive. Yeah, it just throws that out.
So that's guaranteed 12 damage here.
Yeah, plus like there's 2 extra from the Leper Gnome, right? It wouldn't surprise me to see him not even play the high main.
You do have to clear off this anti-heal bot though, or it threatens to get bounced back in hand. Although that being said, a 7-mana anti-heal bot, how valuable is that to Irony?
Yeah, I don't know. I was just thinking that too. Like, could you ignore the heal bot here for 3 face damage? Because if he ends up playing heal bot next turn, that's his entire turn. So.
Yeah. I do think now that I think about it, it's probably relevant to kill off the heal bot, not for the 7-mana heal bot, but more so because you don't want the Lotheb to get attacked or to get an attack off.
Yeah, I agree with that. He needs a weapon buff, and he could potentially clear. Can he still clear with Thalnos? Backstab, Eviscerate, Blade Flurry, Sap. No, he's 1 mana off getting a full clear. He can do a really good job, and he's still at 16, so he's not dead by any means, but it's just like fighting from a really awkward position. And
He
of
can
course,
he can get like an almost clear. I think he can clear everything off except the Misha.
yep. And then you would hope that like maybe the Blood Mage can take the trap, but it won't. There's a lot of ways that it will die here, so seems like the Rogue is just going to be stuck, slowly losing and never actually able to attack the Hunter with his creature because of that freezing trap.
Yeah. He basically the problem Irony has is that he can't make a small minion stick on the board. All he can do is basically, even if he Violet Teachers, he gets a lot of tokens, then Trump has a counter to that with the Unleash the Hounds. So just really no good options.
Gets it close, about as close as he could there. If he had the 1 more mana for the Eviscerate, it would have been better.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Look at all that damage.
Like we said, Irony is just like putting a lot of emphasis on getting that Blood Mage on the board.
I think you really don't want to play the high main here. Just in case a second sap, like that's the only way you could lose. Because that gives enough tempo to the Rogue where they can play a creature and sap and then potentially take it back. You could play like high main coin Glaive Zuka and hit the Thalnos, but it seems like much better to unleash Glaive Zuka and maybe even throw the Owl on the Thalnos.
That's a good point. Yeah, it feels like you really want to get a lot of value on the Snake Trap as well. This is pretty aggressive.
Gotta love that play.
Yeah, I mean, why not? I think Trump was watching the game before, and he realized that Irony only plays one shade. So he plays a shade, so he's less likely to play anti-Keelbot, or rather, he's less likely to play Arthring Farseer, and not many players play double Healbot. So he's basically making the read that my opponent probably doesn't have another heal in his deck, or even if he does, it's not too bad since he still has the weapon, he has Unleash the Hounds, he has the hero power, and he has Quick Shot.
I guess Irony knew he was dead, so it didn't matter the order he traded in. Yeah, that was a really smart play where he just saw the damage would set up for lethal, and then if there's no heal, then he wins. He was at 27. It seemed really unlikely that the Rogue could ever take it. I think the only way the Rogue could have taken it was high main and then get a sap and sap the high main to potentially get like a board developed in time. But when that Hunter has such an early lead, I think the Lothab on 5, right? The Lothab on 5 for Irony really just crushed the game. There was no way to come back after that.
Yeah,
for Trump, rather.
Yeah, I completely agree. That top deck was so monstrous. Another part of it was that Irony's hand was quite clunky. I mean, having all your 5-drops in the first 10 cards of your hand against a Hunter is typically not what you want. And in addition to that, he had to basically prep sprint on turn 4. And I feel like in that matchup, you really want to use your preps in order to get tempo and not to get card draw. And the problem was that the card draw that he got wasn't really the best cards he could have gotten.
Yeah. His opening hand actually looked pretty good, though, didn't it? He had 2 backstabs, and like that's exactly what you want, especially with Trump playing Hybrid Hunter. There were a lot of things that backstab would have worked on. But Trump actually didn't really have anything that backstab worked on. He rolled a Misha off Animal Companion, and I think there was a Mad Scientist, which is like questionable value even.
Yeah. Although I think his opening hand was something like double backstab, sprint, and Azure Drake.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like a very questionable hand, I think.
I wonder if you keep Deadly Poison in a match like that. Deadly Poison is like normally an auto include in any match where you know you want to clear early creatures, but to me Backstab seems like better than Deadly Poison in pretty much every way in that type of matchup, or even an Eviscerate, because then you don't take any damage.
Yeah. So here's another interesting matchup: Rogue versus Patron Warrior. When people first started playing Oil Rogue, just recently in the last month or two, they were basically playing it to counter Patron Warrior. But in reality, I don't think it's like an amazing counter. Going off the stats once again, this is very, very close to a 50-50 matchup with 25 wins for Oil Rogue and 24 wins for Patron Warrior.
Wow, that's really narrow. Yeah, I don't know. We've seen this match played out a couple times already so far in this tournament. It actually seems like one of the more popular picks to take the Oil Rogue lately, and I think we've seen it go both ways, right? Can't remember all the Rogue games exactly now, but
What I will say is that I feel like the shade of Naxxramas that Irony is using in his deck is probably going to be good in this matchup, better than the Farseer. But I feel like you have to draw that and play it on turn 3. And just generally, I feel like the shade isn't... I don't like the shade that much in Oil Rogue because it feels like Earthring Farseer is... well, first of all, I feel like the shade is much better than Earthring Farseer on 3. But on any other turn, it almost feels like the shade is... Or it feels like the Farseer is better because it's just a more reliable minion.
Yep. I'd agree with that. I think that if you, yeah, you're right. If you draw the shade on 3, it's amazing. But then later in the game, like 2 health, even a Patron Warrior can AoE clear 2 damage. So it could be the shade never even attacks because Trump is just prepared for it. This is a really, really good hand from Trump. I think the only thing he would want to draw here is Warsong Commander. And then even so, it's like he can throw a patron out there if he wants and see if there's a flurry and still have the backup plan of Emperor with second patron. So it's like all the glory in his hand right now.
Yeah, even a Battle Rage here. I think that's also one of the better cards he could have drawn. Yeah.
Wouldn't surprise me to see him play Emperor first then, because so he could get a really good, oh man. Then you want to attack with a weapon here too. You could get a really good patron and test for flurry, and we can see that that would be amazing. Like that would just win the game pretty much, unless Irony picked up Blade Flurry on the next draw. But if you Emperor first, then you get to squeeze in the Battle Rage when you do the patron turn. So even if he clears it, you're not like losing momentum.
Yeah, that's a really good point actually. But if you do that play, you give him 2 more turns, or rather 1 more turn, in order to draw into the Blade Flurry. And also, I mean, you would also have to not use the Death Spite here, and you would take a little bit more damage. So this feels pretty good.
Yeah, I like this play a lot. I think Trump is normally thought of as like the safe player, but this is a gamble, and it's going to pay off huge for him. Irony in this deciding match, especially, like all the pressure is on. I think he'd be very inclined to play it safe, but he has the backup plan anyways, so might as well go for it and might just win in the next turn.
I think this is one of those scenarios where if you do some math on it, you basically can tell. First of all, Rogue always mulligans away Blade Flurry in their opening hand. And Trump, at this point, he can tell how many cards that Irony has drawn so far off the mulligan card. So you can kind of calculate the chances of a Blade Flurry coming along. And just based off of that, if a Blade Flurry doesn't come, you basically win the game. If a Blade Flurry is in his hand, then you're still not in a terrible position. So I think this, just like going off of risk versus reward, this is going to be a pretty amazing turn.
Yep. So he's going to try to clear some of it out. I think the Lothab would have been a pretty reasonable choice. Did he just play what? What? You just gave him more patrons? That's pretty unusual. I like the Lothab there, and you just attack 1 patron, because Lothab like technically trades kind of well.
I think he just wanted to cycle a bit more. But yeah, this is not going to do pretty well.
So he could, next turn, he's not actually dead. He could sprint into Prep and Blade Flurry, or he could kill his own Thalnos with Backstab and try to draw Blade Flurry. But that's it. He has 1 more turn to get the Flurry, otherwise he's dead. Even then, like, I think he's still dead. Trump will just drop Emperor, and the Rogue would have to actually set up lethal. Trump already throwing a smile.
Yeah, not only that, but this is actually just the perfect hand for Trump. Like, I can't think of anything better. Maybe a second Whirlwind, but this is like 99% close to the perfect hand. You have your Warsong, you have a Frothing, you have another Patron, you have a Ghoul, you have a Whirlwind, and that's pretty much just going to be it. The Blade Flurry does
The
come,
flurry.
but no prep.
So that means Trump takes the series, and that means both Firebat and Trump have moved on to the semifinals, making both of the invite players some of the strongest potential in this tournament so far.
Yeah. TSM did it, guys. TSM wondered. And you know what? That actually means that because Trump finished first in his group and Firebat finished second in his group, we're gonna have a Trump versus Firebat match tomorrow. So it's already something to get excited about.
Yeah, that's grand finals worthy. Keep in mind, of course, this is eventually leading up into PAX, so whoever advances from this would move on further to an additional tournament as well.
Yeah, I know for a fact that both players really want to go to PAX. A lot of Firebat's teammates already go to PAX. I know that Backspace, Nadia, and Orange already have plans to go to PAX, so I think he's definitely very excited to join them.
Yep.
A lot of like TSM players, even their league players, are going to PAX as well, and Trump would definitely want to join his teammates as well. We're going to take a short break, but before we go, we have to again remind you to please support our sponsors, especially GEICO. They're doing a really good job sponsoring our tournament, and they're just really contributing to esports overall. You can support
Yep.
GEICO by going to geico.onog.gg, getting a really cool GEICO quote, maybe some save up to 15% or more on car insurance. And you can also, by going to that site, you can possibly win an official TSM PC, which has some of the best specs on the market right now. So definitely you want to check that out. Not only that, but if you want to play in these tournaments like Irony has, you can actually qualify for them by playing in our opens found at liquidhearth.com. There's actually going to be 4 opens remaining, 2 on August 10th, 2 on August 12th, and there will be 1 EU tournament and 1 NA tournament on each day. So your final chance to qualify for PAX, and I believe your final chance to get Hearthstone World Championship points from a big tournament. So definitely something you want to check out in the final stretches of just the Hearthstone World Championship series.
Yeah. So we will see you guys in the next match.
See you then.
I lost my fireside.